You know what's really interesting about investing? There's a huge difference between how institutions and businesses approach the market versus regular, everyday investors like you and me. When prices start dropping, the big players don't freak out and start selling everything. They actually keep their cool and don't assume the world is ending. They don't look at one bad day and think, well, this is just going to keep falling forever. But us regular folks, we tend to get pretty emotional and react exactly like that. I'm bringing this up because as I'm putting this together, XRP took quite a hit yesterday and even this morning. We're looking at prices getting close to $3, and it actually dipped as low as $3.05 when I started recording. Now I have no idea where it'll be by the time you watch this. But here's the thing, XRP wasn't alone in this drop. Pretty much the entire crypto market moved down together, so this isn't just an XRP problem. What I find really telling is that when businesses and institutions decide to get into XRP, they recognize it as a clear winner and early standout in the crypto world. They totally get that time is on XRP's side here. The longer you hold, the more valuable it becomes as fresh investors keep discovering what's out there. And honestly, we're still in the super early days of crypto adoption when you zoom out and look at the big picture. Yeah, crypto's been kicking around for 16 years or so, but think about this. Barely a sliver of humanity has ever actually held any cryptocurrency in their hands. When it comes to XRP, we're looking at a microscopic fraction of people worldwide who've ever taken the plunge and bought some. It's wild how few people have actually experienced owning XRP, like finding a needle in a haystack level of rare. So seriously, congratulations for showing up early and actually doing something about it. I genuinely mean that from the bottom of my heart. Look, we're all just everyday people trying to figure this out together. I'm just a regular person, you're regular people, and we're all working toward the same goal of improving our financial lives. Here's the crazy part, though. This might just be the most incredible wealth-building opportunity our species has ever seen. Nothing like cryptocurrency has existed before in human history, and we get to be part of it as it's happening right now. What's really exciting is that crypto has created this level playing field where regular folks like us can actually compete. And now that XRP isn't getting hammered by the US government anymore, and with America basically ending its war on crypto, which is huge since it's the world's biggest capital market, suddenly all these businesses are lining up to pour money specifically into XRP. And guess what? Here's yet another perfect example of exactly that happening. Check out this headline that just dropped. Nature's Miracle Holding Inc. is launching a massive $20 million corporate XRP treasury program. We're talking about a real publicly traded company here that's basically saying, hey, we're going to stockpile XRP as our treasury reserve asset. This isn't some quick flip. They're in this for the long haul, building up their XRP stash as a strategic move for years down the road. So if you're sitting there feeling all jittery about yesterday and today's market dip, watching XRP's price bounce around and getting those nervous butterflies, here's what you need to remember. The executives running this company couldn't care less about these short-term swings. You're stressed, but they're not even blinking. Why? Because they're playing the long game, while most people are getting caught up in daily price movements. And here's the thing. They totally understand what I've been hammering home in my recent videos about how this is just standard operating procedure in the crypto world. It doesn't mean XRP is dead in the water or heading to zero or any of that doom and gloom stuff. It's just that regular folks get their feelings all twisted up when they see red numbers on their screens. But this publicly traded company, you think they're sitting there biting their nails and panicking? Get this, they actually announced this treasury program on the exact same day everything started crashing. Does that sound like a company that's sweating bullets to you? I'm willing to bet they're probably sipping their coffee and thinking, so what? Why should they care? Big institutions and companies get how this game works, and they don't let their emotions drive the bus. It's pretty obvious when you think about it that way. So check this out, and I'm going to dive deeper into this later in the video. There are literally tons of companies that have rolled out announcements about launching XRP treasury programs. We're talking about using XRP as their go-to treasury reserve asset. And guess what timing all this has? It's been happening ever since the election results came in and Trump secured the presidency. That's not a coincidence. That's exactly why we're seeing this wave of adoption right now. And here's the beautiful part. XRP was already primed for a massive rally no matter what, but now it's going to shoot up way higher and way faster because of how everything's played out with the end of the crypto wars. All those years when we were stuck in that brutal lawsuit, and I'm talking nearly 5 years of legal hell, I kept saying the same thing over and over. Give us a fair playing field where nobody's trying to kill crypto, and XRP is going to absolutely crush the competition, like total domination level crushing. And why is that? Well, there's a bunch of reasons, but honestly, it boils down to one simple thing. XRP actually works the way it's supposed to. It can do all the stuff Bitcoin was originally meant to do, but just can't pull off anymore. Think about it. You can actually use XRP as real money if you want to, which was the whole point of Bitcoin in the first place, right? Remember Satoshi's white paper talking about Bitcoin being this peer-to-peer cash system? That was the dream. Except Bitcoin completely fails at that now, because sending it costs a fortune and takes forever to go through. Meanwhile, XRP can handle all of that stuff without breaking a sweat. Turns out when something actually functions the way people need it to, the market notices and gets excited about it. We're already seeing tons of businesses putting XRP to work for all kinds of practical uses. So here's what this whole thing says, and it's pretty fascinating. Nature's Miracle Holding Inc. These guys are big players in vertical farming technology. Just dropped the news that they're setting up this massive $20 million XRP treasury program. And I absolutely love the timing here because they made this announcement right when XRP was getting hammered along with everything else in the market, which just shows they couldn't care less about short-term noise. It's actually kind of hilarious how unbothered they are. Anyway, they're planning to use money from their equity deal with GHS Investments, the one where they just got their SEC registration statement approved to go out and buy up XRP while also covering their regular business expenses. This is coming straight from their official press release, by the way. What makes this really interesting is that this move basically puts Nature's Miracle in the history books as one of the very first publicly traded companies to make XRP, which is sitting pretty as the third biggest cryptocurrency, their main treasury play. Get this, they didn't go with Bitcoin for their main treasury move. They passed on gold. They looked at all the options out there and said, nope, we want XRP as our core treasury strategy. So if you're sitting there thinking XRP makes total sense for the long haul and is going to be worth way more down the road, well, guess what? You're in some pretty good company with smart money, successful people, and major institutions who are thinking exactly the same thing. There's a whole crowd of them that see what you see. At this point, it's pretty obvious that XRP is already proving itself as one of the early champions in crypto. So yeah, making it your go-to treasury strategy just makes perfect sense to me. I mean, why wouldn't you? It beats the heck out of sitting on dollars that keep losing value. Talk about watching your money melt away, right? Anyway, the press release keeps going and gets even better. They're talking about grabbing XRP tokens specifically as long-term strategic reserves. Long-term people, they're not losing sleep over whatever's happening with prices this week, I can guarantee you that. So they're talking about long-term strategic reserves, setting up staking to earn some yield, and getting involved with the whole Ripple ecosystem. Now, they don't spell out exactly what that means, but I'm guessing they've got some kind of deal cooking with Ripple for moving money around or something, because come on, in an official press release like this, they've got to know the difference between Ripple the company and XRP the token, right? Although if they actually mix those up, I'm going to be laughing my butt off for days. So maybe we should put a little question mark there just in case. Moving on though, here's how they're planning to fund this whole thing. Nature's Miracle is going to use part of that equity money they might get from their S1 registration when they decide to actually sell some securities through that deal. But here's where it gets really interesting. They're not stopping there. They're saying they might ramp up their XRP game even more later on by mixing in different funding sources, like issuing more equity, doing some strategic placements, or getting creative with structured financing deals. Since President Trump signed the Genius Act on July 18th, 2025, we're seeing more and more companies embracing cryptocurrency as a key part of their treasury strategy, according to James Lee, CEO of Nature's Miracle. He shared some interesting insights with us. XRP has incredible potential because it makes cross-border payments faster and cheaper. Look at major players like Banco Santander and American Express. They're already using XRP. We're confident that adding an XRP treasury program will create real value for both our company and our shareholders. And honestly, the results so far seem to back up his optimism completely. Check out this headline from BN Crypto that really tells the story. California firm's stock soars 150% after announcing XRP treasury plan. That's exactly what happened with Nature's Miracle. They made their announcement and boom, their stock jumped 150% just on that news alone. What makes this even more impressive? XRP itself was actually dropping that day, but the stock still climbed. People clearly understand what's happening here. This isn't just one isolated case either. There are plenty of examples showing that if you believe XRP makes sense, you're in great company. Smart, successful people, along with major businesses and institutions, are reaching the same conclusion about XRP's potential. The evidence is pretty compelling when you think about it. What really stands out to me is XRP's resilience. It survived what was probably the most severe challenge it could face. That SEC attack was about as damaging as anything could be. If something was going to destroy XRP, that would have been it. But here's the thing. Even during that whole ordeal, XRP never dropped out of the top 10 cryptocurrencies by market cap. Sure, the legal battle kept the price artificially low for a while, but it wasn't enough to knock XRP down from its position. That kind of staying power is honestly remarkable. Look at these fascinating developments. Here's a headline from May 29th that really caught my attention. Vivo Power raises $121 million to launch XRP treasury strategy with Saudi royal backing. What's incredible about this story is that we discovered Saudi royalty has actually been holding XRP for nearly a decade, and now they're rolling out a full treasury strategy around it. We're talking about $121 million here. That's serious money backing serious confidence in XRP. But that's not all. Check out this headline from May 12th. Florida's Wellgistics adopts XRP for healthcare payments with $50 million credit facility. What makes this particularly exciting is how Wellgistics is using XRP. They're integrating it directly into their payment systems for day-to-day operations, while also holding it as a treasury reserve asset. This is the real deal, folks. Here's another compelling example from June 4th. Chinese firm Webis's stock jumps after filing with SEC for $300 million XRP strategic reserve. We're talking about a massive $300 million strategic reserve here, and just like the other companies, Webis saw their stock price perform really well after this announcement. What's particularly interesting is the timing of all these moves. They're all happening after the election results. The political landscape shift has clearly opened the floodgates for this kind of institutional adoption, and it's creating incredible opportunities for XRP holders. This momentum feels unstoppable at this point. XRP has essentially already secured its victory. Now it's just a matter of watching the price reflect that reality over time, and the trend keeps rolling. Here's another headline from June 12th. Singapore's Trident Digital targets mammoth $500 million raise to establish XRP treasury. Another major player jumping into the XRP treasury game. Here's what might have been the very first example, at least the first one I can remember seeing. This headline is from December 6th, and I actually remember covering this story when it broke. I was genuinely thrilled because this was exactly what I'd always believed could happen. It was like watching a prediction come true right before my eyes. The timing makes perfect sense when you think about it. All XRP really needed was a fair shot and a US government that wasn't actively working against cryptocurrency. Here's the headline that started it all. XRP enters corporate treasury reserves with Worksport and BC Bud Coe's investments. It was absolutely fantastic to witness this groundbreaking moment. And here's one final example from May 29th that really drives the point home. Hyperscale data subsidiary Alt Capital Group plans to launch XRP lending platform for U.S. public companies in Q3 2025. This is huge because it shows XRP being used for genuine utility, an actual lending platform, while simultaneously serving as a treasury reserve asset. We're talking about real-world applications here, not just speculation. Look, we clearly back the right horse. Whatever XRP's price is doing when you're reading this, whether it's bounced back, dropped further, or sitting sideways, none of that changes the fundamental picture. These short-term price movements are just noise compared to the long-term trajectory we're seeing unfold. The institutional adoption trend is so strong and consistent that the upward momentum feels almost inevitable. Speaking in terms of probabilities, my confidence as an XRP holder has never been stronger. Of course, nobody can predict price movements with absolute certainty, myself included. But the evidence keeps piling up in XRP's favor. Just remember, I'm not offering financial advice here. You shouldn't make any investment decisions based on what I'm saying.